My name is Larry Dillon. I'm the CEO of MoveMyBiz.com. Uh, just a little bit about MoveMyBiz.com. We are absolutely free information. We scour all the different industries. There's about 20 different industries that we cover and try to find out what's the latest and greatest information to provide to you, and we're really here to help you with the relocation process. If there's ever anything that you can't find on our website that you need the answer to, just feel free to email us at info@movemybiz.com with any type of question, and we'll get the answer for you. So today we're going to talk about office furniture. Especially for many of you, this is the first time making a major purchase of office furniture, and I can tell you it can be confusing. What you should know is there are many choices. There's a lot of cool product out there that the office furniture industry has developed, and it really, my best advice to you is to take the time sooner rather than later to really explore your options. And what we try to do is we try to bring to these webinars, there's a whole series of webinars coming up that you can attend, and everything is always free with MoveMyBiz.com. We've got with us today Patrick Hayes, who's with Creative Office Pavilion. Patrick started his career in 1994 with O'Brien Incorporated, which is a Herman Miller dealer. He's also worked for Business Furniture Inc. And he also was a regional manager at Knoll, which is a large office furniture manufacturer. Patrick has done, extensive work in the U.S. as well as the Caribbean, and he's currently the president of Creative Office Pavilion in New York, and he brings a lot of information and industry knowledge to us today. So I just want to welcome Patrick. Patrick, are you there?
I am. Hi, Larry. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us today. And Patrick, let's get started and dig in. What are the sort of the latest trends in the workspace that these folks should be aware of?
Okay. Well, thanks, Larry. In terms of trends, we actually see a pretty diverse and really evolved workplace today. Really, we kind of think about trends, and a lot of this is rooted in research, some of which we do and some of which the manufacturers that we work with conduct. And if you think about trends, Larry, in a couple of different areas, it's really centered around very simple things. It's what's happening, what kind of work is happening in the workplace today, and really who are the people doing the work in the workplace today. So from a really high-level approach, the work that's happening in most workplaces and offices today is really much more collaborative and group-oriented. If you think about work being categorized in basically three different buckets: focused work, or what some might know as heads-down work. That's one type of work that maybe accountants do or the like. Shared work, where maybe a colleague or two or three need to work together on a specific task at a particular time during their day. And then there's group work, and we really see the work migrating. While there'll always be focused work or individual heads down work, we really see it migrating more towards collaborative and group work. So the spaces, as you can imagine, have to reflect the type of work that's happening in the organization, and ultimately the furniture has to support what that space needs to be. So that's, I would say, one of the bigger trends, Larry.
Mm-hmm.
The second, I would say, if you think about the people side, the average worker today is vastly different than the worker that was entering the workforce 10 years ago, certainly, but even 5 years ago. In a world where we're constantly being inundated with data and stimulus, we have people that really are much better at multitasking, are much better at fielding multiple pieces of information at the same time, and in fact, do better. Research would tell you do better in that environment as opposed to one that's singularly focused. So basically saying we have, it comes down to quite literally 4 generations of workers in the workplace today. I mean, if you start with the even part of the silent, what we would call the silent generation, and move down through the baby boomers and in through Gen X and Gen Y and the millennials, that's kind of the nature of it. So you have a lot of really different types of people doing really different types of work in a different way than they used to. So those are some of the bigger things that we see.
And is it, it's more open space than the cubicles? I mean, what's the situation?
Well, that's right. I think I think your point is, if you think about, sort of that Dilbert farm that we've all come accustomed to from the late 60s till maybe a decade ago, again, more the what's happening actually dictates what a house space gets developed, right? So we're absolutely seeing fewer workstations, and those workstations are in fact much smaller, much lower in height. If you think about panel systems, or one might refer to as a classic cubicle. So we see a lot of those changing, and I think the work that's happening is really dictating that, as I mentioned. But more importantly, it's also a business driver. I mean, real estate costs are continually being squeezed, both in rate and volume. So as density increases and real estate footprints decrease, we see less and less private personal space and more public space. So the 2 things that you got to think about there, guys, are the one, the personal space is getting smaller and lower, so less stuff, right, less product. But then the public spaces, to accommodate some of this group work, are actually increasing. So basic ratios that we see 10 years ago, public space was about 20% of any given office, and the private space was 80%, and we see that almost flipping in reverse. We're probably about a 60-40 ratio at this point, of public to private, and that's probably a trend that we'll seek to continue to at least an 80-20 sort of ratio.
And one of the things that amazes me about this industry is how much change and innovation there is. But for many of the folks on MoveMyBiz.com, we sort of call her Jane, and Jane might be the CEO or owner or CFO of a 100, 200, 300 person company. Hasn't really been involved in the selection of office furniture for maybe 5 or 10 years. And what's the best way for them to kind of understand? I know we exhibited at NeoCon East down in Baltimore, and we asked our CFO to come along, and she's been with us for 20 years and has bought millions of dollars worth of stuff. And the thing that was stunning to me was, as soon as she walked into the Baltimore Convention Center and saw all of the stuff that was available, she said, "Wow, I had no idea." And I thought to myself, wow, we should have gotten in front of her, 15 years ago. She's made about 6 purchases. What's your advice for somebody like, a Jane who, just would never set foot in a NeoCon, is not familiar with what's going on? What kind of advice?
Sure. Sure, and poor Jane, right? She's just sort of, she's been approving these purchases for a long time, and it's a big capital expenditure on most budgets, but really not in tune to, what's out there, how it gets done. One of the things that we learned, and we all talk about it in terms of general consumer relevance. Not many people really understand the industry or even know it exists. They know that the furniture's there and offices are populated, but they don't really understand how that all happens. So I think as we go through and things evolve, yes, there are things like trade shows. I would reach out to most of the consultants that what one would normally work with. I would start with commercial real estate. And that whole industry is certainly engaged and plugged into what we're doing. Certainly if you're working with an architecture and design firm, they're going to be pretty well versed in the furniture industry. So I think leaning on some of the people that are part of your business experience in those categories, and then also talk to friends. People have done this before. because most people, a good friend of mine is a managing partner at a national law firm, and they just moved an office in Miami. And, we chatted after the whole thing was said and done, and he said, yeah, I had no idea. And so the amount of challenges that came at him and the amount of questions that he didn't have answers to and the constituents that he has to be responsible for. And it's a very, very difficult position. So I would say for anybody that's even contemplating it, reach out now. Certainly if you research it, it's an interesting space because it's only about a $10 billion industry, but there are many, many manufacturers and many players that play in that $10 billion. So there are some major manufacturers that are well known, very stable, been around for a really long time doing this, and tend to be on the forefront of most of the trending that we talked about earlier. So that's where I would start. I would start with other professionals and I would start asking the questions now, because it doesn't come up at most cocktail parties, but somebody has been involved with a move or a large capital furniture purchase at some point, and could really share a lot of insight.
Great, thanks. So next thing I'd like to ask is, talk to us about how you work with the the design community. What's that relationship work? How does that again for Jane, who's got that 300-person engineering firm, how do you guys work together with interior design architectural firms?
Yeah, that's a great question, Larry. Really, the interior design community, specifically the interior architecture community, has really been the backbone of the business. If you go back to the 30s and 40s, office spaces were designed as a big shell, and the architecture ended sort of at the interior walls, and they rolled in a bunch of desks and chairs, and it really wasn't very sophisticated. But as interiors developed and the art and science of developing interiors developed, the furniture became a very important piece of it. So it's in many, many ways, it's already part of the sort of furniture industry's culture or DNA, if you will, that we're embedded in the design community. So the way we support it, so they know who we are and they rely on us greatly, and we rely on them. But some of the ideas that we really work on to support them is to really, ultimately, right, we're helping them actualize the space as they envision it or as they plan it, right? I think that makes sense.
Yep.
So the way we do that, we assist in some basic services that we provide would be space planning that has to get done and be facilitated and handed over to the furniture folks at one point. Product application and selection, that's obviously really big. We're versed in what's out there. You mentioned NeoCon East in Baltimore, and we obviously live and breathe it every day, so we try to stay on the forefront of that. Space utilization in terms of how productive a space might be, some of the sort of pre-move and pre and post occupancy surveys that we do. So really the whole idea, Larry, is to really augment and support what the architecture and design community in the areas that they need to consider as it relates to the furniture. So, and those kinds of things, and I will tell you through a few downturns in my career, as most industries go through an evolution or a maturation, we see the design community being responsible for as much as they used to be responsible for with fewer and fewer resources. So I think when we can support them and help them, we can really add value to the process. And that's key to them because our relationship with them is paramount, frankly.
Yeah, and I can tell you from being on the furniture installation side and being there the day that everybody moves in, everybody, Monday morning when everyone comes in, at getting started early, working with the the furniture company and the interior design company, when you get it right, I can tell you from experience, it can be a real tremendous impact on motivation for your organization. So I think it's well worth it. So let's talk about ergonomics, health and safety issues. What should we be aware of? Because our audience is going to make a major purchase of office furniture, and that's a 5-10 year commitment. What should we be aware of?
Well, I think anybody that's responsible for human resources in the organization, whether it rolls up to the CFO or the COO or the office manager, or if you in fact have a formal HR department, is really going to be versed in health and safety. Health and safety is obviously a critical issue in the workplace. A lot of people will think of ergonomics as an automatic thought, but it's really wrapped around, I mean, what wraps around the whole health and safety is really employee satisfaction. And the satisfaction comes from an environment that provides the ability to be physically healthy, but also the ability to be mentally healthy. So in some of the things that we worry about, or some of our clients worry about when it comes to physical issues, would be repetitive stress or cumulative trauma and things like traditionally carpal tunnel and those types of things. What's interesting about it is, and again, it's really wrapped around this idea of evolution. What's interesting is as these workplace trends come into play more and more, it's actually really makes it a much healthier place. And I don't know if that's coincidence or just a fringe benefit, but the more people move around, the more options they have. Herman Miller would tell you that workers are shoppers. That's part of their research that you can find. That workers, and I have folks in my own organization who do some work at their workspace. They might move up to a standing position or adjust their work surface or work area to a standing capability so that they can move. So the different types of work actually provide a healthier environment, and that really is where it's all rooted in.
Great. We did have a question. Somebody asked if this was going to be recorded, and I do want to mention, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them as we go along. There will be a recording of this that will be available later on. All right, so this is the big thing that I see, and Patrick, this is across every industry that I talk to: technology, servers, networks, getting started early. Talk to us about timing. What are the key triggers, and how important is it?
I think the timing is essential in two categories. That's a really good topic. I think when I think about people that have not been, and taken people through this process who've not been through it before, the one thing that always stands out, and I think anybody from a construction management firm to an architecture firm to a contract furniture dealership to a furniture manufacturer and anybody that might participate in an interiors project, time is vital. You can never get more, and you always need more, but you can lose it really fast. Projects get delayed. Anybody that's done any work in their own home, it being on time and on budget is a really valuable service. So the timing of it is critical. The more time you can take early on, and if a lot of that starts where those ideas revolve around lease expirations, and when you think your organization might be either renewing where you are, and you might have a refresh requirement if you've been in the space a while, or in fact you're gonna up and move. I think as much time as you can commit to this in a deliberate way really serves people well. We've certainly seen people take that advice, and projects go a lot smoother than some that maybe don't take that advice.
Mm-hmm. And a couple of things here that that I've observed, and again, this is across all industries, is that you've got that paradigm of the project management paradigm that basically says the more time that you allow for planning of a project increases the options and lowers your overall cost, and the less time that you allot for planning a project, your options diminish and the cost goes up. And you bring up a good point. There's always something that'll go wrong. I remember one particular move where we're stalling on getting started with the project, and really can run into some serious issues. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, Patrick, we talked about before you even look at real estate or talk to a real estate broker, tell the audience what you were telling me about why should you talk to folks in the office furniture industry or space planning or design before you talk to a commercial realtor. I don't know if you remember our pre-conversation about
I
that.
do, and I think it's all these conversations ideally can happen concurrently. I mean, I don't think there's any particular sequence, but I think the nature of this traditionally has been sequential. So, okay, you're going to move, and you hire a broker, and a broker takes you out and looks at space, and then the space that you go look at 2 or 3 spaces, and those spaces are potential options for you, and those spaces are represented by a broker, right? So now you have 2 parties talking, and that occupies a lot of your time. And again, most people that are doing this work, they have day jobs, right, Larry? I mean, they're the CFO, they're the somebody that they're not exactly looking for. So there's very limited time to be able to do that. So the more you compress the time frame from looking for space to moving in and occupying is limited. So if you do it in 10 weeks or 12 weeks, you're going to have that much time to, and again, you still have your day job, right? So you're going to have only that much time per day if you can expand that out. And what I would suggest to most of the customers that we see, if you think about it beforehand, you can accomplish some things, and actually some of the furniture folks can actually, assist and help through the process. They can get you through your test fits more quickly, so you can decide on a space more quickly, which is important, because once you decide on your space, then the ball gets rolling and you kind of start the whole process. So the more you can do it, as I've said repeatedly, the sooner the better. But once leases get signed, things happen, right? Because real estate companies are in the business of delivering space, and the longer it takes them to deliver it, the worse it is for their business model, right? So they're going to execute. Yeah, they'll stumble along the way, and things happen, as we said earlier. But once that deliverable is on the table, that gun goes off and the clock starts. And obviously, the last thing that any company, organization, or executive wants is to pay 2 rents. And the more you can get it done earlier, and once that gun goes off, and get in the process so it's more streamlined, and it's all about preparation, which I've never thought, I don't think any of us would ever think you could have too much of. So it's all about that, Larry. The preparation is key.
Yep. And I just wanted to make a quick mention that I think that talking with designers and folks with office furniture, I think if the last time you relocated, which for most companies like Jane's, that's a single location, 300-person engineering firm, let's say, the last time they relocated might have been 10 years ago. And the question is, do you need 10,000 square feet, or based on the new way that people work, you might only need 8,000 square feet, or you might need more or less. But I think that really sort of figuring out how the space is going to be utilized really should be done. And I like the way that you said, all the stuff can happen concurrently. That I think that's a missed opportunity. Again, as a building owner and being involved in a lot of these moves, generally it's, they've got too much space or too little. It's and I think with some planning you can get probably just the right amount of space.
I think it's a good point, Larry. It goes back to the trends that we talked to initially, and if we really understand what's happening in the space, and we can be involved and get as many as much intellectual input as you can with people that are experienced in this stuff around the table, say, okay, what does this really need to be? We very, very rarely do we see people take too much space. We see most companies take too little space, and I will tell you, 9 times out of 10 when that happens, that's a short-term financial decision that was made in a bit of a vacuum, and not a lot of pre-planning was done. So they do a test fit. Somebody says you need X, and I will tell you, most companies that we do business with get into that space often inside of a year, and they're a little tight. And then in hindsight, that becomes a really bad short-term decision. But again, you can't make a good decision in that vacuum. You really need to be thinking about the process ahead of time.
Yep. So this is a big issue. We get a lot of inquiries about the green office and being environmentally friendly. Sure. I know this is really important to a lot of the visitors to Move My Biz. Talk to us about this and how it relates to your industry.
Yeah, what's really good about this whole sustainability idea is it has come so far, and I think the whole sustainability sort of idea and culture in this country has developed greatly in the last decade. But there are very, very many choices in the marketplace today to get furniture that we would call environmental friendly or sustainable, right? It's not really that complicated. In the beginning, companies talked about having product that didn't emit, didn't off gas or emit VOCs or volatile organic compounds, formaldehyde being an example of that, right? So nobody uses formaldehyde in product anymore. Nobody uses, hopefully, nobody's using PVC. But then you take it a step forward, and so that was sort of basic, and that was sort of the, okay, let's start with this issue first. I'm talking about the industry, our industry in general. And now that's sort of cost of entry. It'd be hard-pressed to find any product in the marketplace that doesn't have some VOC standards, some capability in that arena. And then you look at things like wood, right? Offices are often filled with very beautiful veneered wood desks, and that veneer and the finish that goes on that veneer is VOC compliant. But then we kind of literally drill down further, no pun intended, to the wood itself. Most of the wood in the marketplace in terms of wood desks or cabinets or millwork or casework, should be harvested from a source that's maintained by some sort of third party. There's something called the Forestry Stewardship Council, for which many of the manufacturers we represent participate with and do business with, and they harvest that wood from those facilities and those forests that are managed so that they're replenished, so that we can reharvest again soon, and rather than stripping that as a natural resource. So really, really advanced in the areas of sustainability and green, and whether an organization wants to be formal in the way they accomplish their sustainability needs, whether it's a business driver or a business value, or however it goes into their overall organization and their culture, they can do it in a very formal way, right, Larry? We all know what LEED, have heard of LEED, which is leadership in energy and environmental design, and that's a great certification that was rolled out by the U.S. Green Building Council years back, that said you can actually qualify. And a lot of the LEED certification criteria is part of the actual building itself and the interiors, so the drywall and the lighting and all those raw materials that go into, or materials rather, that go into that space. Furniture being a smaller part of that, but we're working on projects constantly where the furniture is contributing to that LEED certification. But as Toyota would say, you don't have to be.
Hello? I think
LEED compliant, it's something about just doing the right thing. I think there's a lot of opportunity for companies to feel good about what they're doing.
Great. I think we lost part of the audio there, but I think we're back. Yeah, my producer just came in. She was, I think we lost about 45 seconds of what you said at the end there, but I think we'll survive, Patrick. I think we're back on.
I think the point, Larry, is whether you're real formal and you want to go through a process, you want to just do some element of doing the right thing and feeling good about the materials that you're using. As long as you focus on recyclable material and furniture that largely uses recycled content, it's very, very accessible in the marketplace today.
Okay, I think I jumped the gun on this, but let's talk a little bit more about researching the furniture before you sign a lease for new office space. What are some of the other advantages of working with? I know one of the things that always cracks me up is building owners will offer to do space planning, a trial fit for a tenant, and I got to be honest, having that's sort of giving the fox the keys to the hen house. How would you handle that? I mean, that's a finer point, but I think it's an important point, that I see when tenants are looking at space, just relying on the building owner's space planner for, a trial fit. Are you there? I think we lost Patrick again. We're having a little difficulty with the audio. I think Patrick will be back soon. But one of the things that that I would suggest if you're looking to lease space is maybe I think it would be worth it if it was my money. It would be worth it to engage a third-party space planner, talk to the office furniture companies about the different options that you have, so that you really understand how much space is needed. The other key thing is that in real estate and commercial real estate, 10,000 square feet might not be, 10,000 square feet in building A may not be equivalent to 10,000 square feet in building B because of columns, the shape of the space. There's a lot that goes into figuring out how your work environment is going to work in that space. And if you're having different space planners from different buildings kind of do a test fit, what's that? Yeah, so that would be my suggestion on researching the furniture and space planning. I like how Patrick said, working concurrently with other folks. We'll attempt to get Patrick back on the phone. I think we've had some technical difficulties, but I will move forward here. So if the last time that you bought furniture, let's say, was 5 or 10 years ago, I would say that the thing that always surprises me when I go back to the office furniture industry and go to the various trade shows is the variety that's available. There are a lot of options. When my CFO went to NeoCon East, she said, wow, I didn't realize there were so many options. And then the second thing she said is, this is going to cost Larry a lot of money because I think that it's worth it to take the time to really understand to take a look at several different types of designs that might be interesting for you. Patrick, are you back?
Larry, I am back.
Yay.
I'm just waiting to be patched back in, but I'm back.
All right.
I don't know what happened there.
Well, it's the wonders of.
I did hear the end of what you said, and we're talking about surprises, and the surprises are many in any project, right? So surprises are always there. But I think if what you're interested in is some of the common ones, I mean, I can certainly share some ideas about that.
Yep, absolutely.
I think one of the biggest surprises, and again, I think just even understanding that there's a whole industry that does this, right? Again, that cocktail party conversation, we joke that you go to, when you do what we do, you go to a cocktail party, and in three seconds you understand that the lady you're talking to is a lawyer at XYZ firm, and she's a litigator. Pretty simple. 20 minutes later, I'm still describing what we do and answering questions, and it's sort of, so that's kind of the first kind of big picture surprise. But more granularly, the one thing is the level of specificity that you have to get down to execute a furniture project, which is really inside an interiors project, and that is, there's a programming discussion, and there's organizational discussions, and there's all this work that's happening, and what does it have to facilitate down to almost quite literally every nut and bolt that has to be ordered, delivered, and built and occupied and inhabited to really execute, and get to your goal. The specificity is really deep. I think the second thing we talk about is the time. I mean, we've kind of beat that to death, but the pre-planning required is really good. And I do have an idea back, Larry. I think what we kind of lost a little bit there was the idea is if you have 3 test fits, to have 3 different groups doing work for you, this can really be a bit of a horse that's built by committee, which we all know is the camel, right? Right. But I think that the getting back to the surprises is the amount of choice out there. Our industry has matured greatly. There's been great contraction and all those sort of macroeconomic things that you see as industries mature. it's matured greatly, and there's tremendous product development is really sophisticated, and we can deliver it in a really, really tight time frame, which is good, but not without the planning. We can deliver anything quickly, but if it's not planned well, again, not to be redundant. So I think those are the large ones. But I think that the last kind of aha is the impact that it has on the organization. I've seen moves, people occupy space and they are ecstatic, despite the change they were afraid of, because people don't typically like that, right? And the emotion tied to furniture, right? The emotion tied to one's built environment in which they spend most of their time, right? We spend most times in our office chair than we do in our bed, right? So, so to those of you out there who are about to take on this venture, buy them a really good chair. I digress, but it's really important. There's a lot of seating on the market at multiple different price points with multiple different capabilities and multiple different designs. Buy them a really good chair and get a professional in to show them how to use it, and you'll be amazed at the great feedback you get. So creating this sort of environment that people are really excited about. Productivity is quantifiable and a metric that you can easily measure, and that the industry has information that provides that. So it's really the impact, because I've also seen it in the opposite side of the coin, where workers come into a new space and it's okay, and in a week they realize everything that's wrong, it doesn't work about it, and the stakeholder that was responsible for that is then inundated with all this negative feedback. So what an opportunity to move your organization forward, and you don't have to create beautiful, robust, dynamic spaces, without watching budget and being pragmatic about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was funny to me. I was talking to a buddy of mine who, lives on a beautiful 10-acre estate. He drives his $120,000 car, to work, and he's talking to me about, a $15,000 outdoor grill that he bought, and then he's going to go to work and work all day, behind he's also the guy that's going to brag how little he spent on office furniture. And I said to him, dude, you spent $15,000 on a grill that you're going to use for 8 hours maybe this year, yet you sit behind that desk for 10 hours. I said, you know what? Maybe you should do something nice for your employees on your next move. And he said, you know what, you got a really good point. I'm like, yeah, these are the people that bought the $15,000 grill, that bought the $120,000 car in the 10-acre estate. Maybe it's time.
Let's hope he listened to you.
Yeah, no, actually he did. He did, actually, but it was hilarious. He's bragging.
Well, I think the point there is well taken, right? What are really the priorities? And if you look at, furniture, that's the other surprise. Let's not kid anybody. It can be, to the uninitiated, it can be a lot to swallow. With a big price tag. But if you think about it in a larger context of what your space costs, the productivity, from that you gain from your organization when they're in a place that makes them want to be there, number one, and want to really produce. I don't know how you make those calculations. Again, we have clients that value that really highly, and we have others that that doesn't matter so much for. So ultimately, it's the buyer's decision. But all we can do is shed some light on. We have plenty of clients who've come back to us and said, these chairs are just not that great. We need to upgrade a little bit. So I would say use the experience of those around you and try and save some of those back and forth challenges. And the more you can get done. And if you think about the furniture is also not, it's something that you purchase that lasts as long as you're in any given space. That's the other sort of one of the nice things about furniture as a commodity. And as an asset, really, is once you depreciate it and it's in the space, it's not costing you anything, and the return on it is really great. I mean, we have leases average 8 to 10 years, 7 to 10 years. It's certainly going to last you that long, and if you renew and stay in the same place, it's going to last you longer than that. So try to think about it in the long term. We all have short-term business challenges. We understand that, but I'd say look at it holistically.
Yeah, and I know from the furniture installation side, the quality of commercial office furniture, other than the obvious very, very cheap furniture, is really outstanding. I think you'll get tired of the design before it wears out.
Yeah, I think that's a good statement. That's a good point, Larry.
So, Patrick, if anybody has any questions for you, you can reach Patrick at pas@cop-inc.com. And I'm sure Patrick would be happy to answer any of the questions. Any final comments, Patrick, before we sign off and share a few announcements?
Only to say thank you, Larry. Thank you, Shannon. It's good to be with you today. And for those that are embarking on this, good luck. There's help out there, and there's a great ribbon cutting and a great move in, and there's a lot of excitement at the end of that road. So, but you'll get there, I promise you.
Great. So today's webinar was recorded. So if you're interested in getting a copy of the recording, you can email us at info@movemybiz.com. We do have a series of webinars coming up. If you want to get on our mailing list, just let us know. And again, we're always here to help you. All our information is always free. Patrick, thank you so much. It was a great webinar. We really appreciate it. And good luck with your move, everyone.